a big game between Alabama and Georgia. The Bulldogs rolling into town, number 3 in the country. Alabama, I believe, is number 2 or vice versa, one way or the other. It's a big game. LT, I want to start there. All of these people that I call the Corona Bros in sports media who have been obsessively sharing every positive test, and they want to constantly lecture us about how unsafe it is to play college football. How much out there do you feel it's hypocritical for those same people to spend Monday through Friday telling us how unsafe and awful it is that football's happening, and then come Saturday and Sunday, they're writing about games, they might be traveling to them, they're tweeting about them? Isn't that insanely hypocritical? If it's not safe to play, isn't it not safe for you to be covering it as well? Shouldn't you actually practice what you preach?
Yeah. I think we're all hypocrites to a degree, Clay. But, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you got players and, different people have opted out during this whole thing. And if you're one of those that truly believes that, why not opt out? It is very hypocritical. Strange times. I don't get it. But boy, big news yesterday, man. That was a bomb. I mean, it was like, when you get one of these celebrity deaths, I can't even compare it to something. I'm trying to think of the last, maybe Michael Jackson, Prince, when one of those guys passed away, and it was like every text you got, can you believe what just went down? I mean, that was kind of the way this spread yesterday with the news of Nick Saban testing positive for COVID.
So what's the impact? What do you think? First of all, he's out, and we were just running through some of the rules. His involvement on Saturday, although I don't know how it's policed, right? Like, if Nick Saban has a secret, technology that allows, and I shouldn't say secret technology, I'm sure it exists, but if Nick Saban somehow is wearing a headset, sitting in his living room, able to hear everything that's being said at Bryant-Denny Stadium, that wouldn't surprise me. And I don't know what punishment would exist if he's able to watch an all 22 from his house or from, his office at home or wherever he is, and occasionally be patched into his coaches. I don't know how that would be proven, and I don't know what the penalty would be. Do you agree with me that if it's possible to happen?
I do. And you know what I go back to? Because we kind of joked about this earlier in the season and even in the off season, if some high-profile coach contracted COVID, would he be able to pull a Hugh Freeze? I mean, you remember Hugh Freeze going from hospital bed to dental chair.
Yes.
If he's able to do this from one of these suites at Liberty, Alabama's got a ton of suites, and I'm sure any booster would clear their suite just to put Nick Saban in there with any healthcare official. And I don't understand why Saban couldn't coach from up there. I mean, you've got coaches from coaching for the press box, and I know this Rule 1411B is very specific that only allows voice communications between the press box and the team area, which I don't know why that only voice communication couldn't be Nick Saban's. So I'm a little confused. I don't think we've got just one black and white rule on COVID, disallowing any coaches from being involved here. I mean, I would think that there would be some kind of loophole.
Can you imagine if this game came down to a crucible decision and Sark just screwed it up? I mean, because this is. You and I, for instance, have sat around and debated what's the value of a top college football coach on the sideline during a game. This is one of the great college football, NFL debates that's ever existed, right? What's Belichick worth on the sideline for a game? What's Saban worth? Well, Vegas is telling us around 2.5 points, which is a pretty big move. It's a bigger move for Nick Saban on the sideline than for any player other than the quarterback, right? So basically, Nick Saban other than the quarterback, and a lot of times it depends on how much the drop-off is from one quarterback to another, but that's a pretty substantial move.
No, look, I've told people before, when it comes down to a number, let's hypothetically say that Dalvin Cook is out for the Minnesota Vikings. Well, you've got Alexander Mattison, and that number's not going to move at all. It might move a half point as good as Dalvin Cook is. The only person that is going to move the number if Kirk Cousins doesn't start, as average as he is, still maybe a bad example there, but it's only a quarterback. And I've never seen this with a head coach. And I had some local bookmakers that I talked to last night, and they had people already hammering Georgia +4.
Yeah.
Like this was going to be some kind of major impact. And then I got a question thrown at me that I've got to throw out on our show later today. If you really asked Alabama fans, would they rather have Nick Saban in this game or Mac Jones, who's been incredible through 3 games for Alabama? I think the majority, I mean, the right answer is probably Mac Jones.
Yeah.
With Bryce Young, a true freshman going against the Georgia defense. Yeah, unproven. But people just believe, and Nick Saban is that important. And you mentioned Sarkisian, and look, and we've seen him with pretty big programs. I mean, Washington, not nearly the program that Alabama is, but he was very average, 34-29. At USC, a big-time program, he was 12-6, very average. I think it's different. I think he has gotten better as a play caller. He's probably gotten more mature as a head coach, or when he will become a head coach. So, I mean, this is a big deal. Is it going to affect the outcome? Possibly. I didn't really know who I liked in this game before this, but I think now with all the distractions, I kind of like Alabama a little bit to regroup.
You mentioned the sideline decision-making. Sark, on the offensive side, Alabama has looked really good. Defensively, Alabama has looked awful. I mean, they have looked like the worst defense of the Nick Saban era, and I'm not just talking about what happened against Ole Miss. They didn't look that good in the second half against Missouri. Now, you can say, they brought some people in, but Bazelak, the backup quarterback there, had some success. And then they didn't look great in terms of yardage allowed against Texas A&M. And now Nick Saban's not on the sideline. He's not able to work and practice the same way that he might have been normally. That's where I'm more concerned, is the defensive side of the ball.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, if you go back Saturday night against Ole Miss, for them to give up 647 yards of offense to a first-year head coach. Look, and Lane Kiffin obviously knows this Alabama program well, and Lane Kiffin is one of the best play callers in all of college football. But Matt Corral looked like an NFL quarterback. I mean, mistake-free. They couldn't get him off the field. Now, the good news for Alabama is, this offense, you can make an argument this is the best offense Nick Saban's had. We can even go back to the two offense from last year when he was healthy. This offense is deadly. So, Alabama's going to be able to outscore a lot of opponents. The difference here on Saturday is they're going to see an elite defense, maybe the best defense in college football. Georgia's the only SEC team that hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown this season. You watched them against your Vols last week after kind of that shaky first half. They laid it down, outscoring the Vols 27-0 in the second half. The thing for Georgia, though, and I don't know what you think, Clay, Stetson Bennett's okay. He hasn't made any mistakes. He's been really efficient. Is Stetson Bennett going to be able to roll into Bryant Denny? And although this defense is on shaky ground right now, is he going to be able to make plays? I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting for Stetson Bennett to make a mistake or two.
Yeah, look, for Kirby Smart, I'm not sure you can get a better opportunity to pull off an upset. You have a 25% capacity Bryant Denny, so you're going to be able to communicate with your team, and the overwhelming nature of playing this game is not going to be anywhere near what it would be with 100,000 people there. Now, maybe Alabama will fudge the numbers, like we saw at Kyle Field, and it'll be louder and more complete in terms of the number of people there than normal. And now you're not even going to have to coach against Nick Saban on the opposing sideline. Do you think this counts, by the way, if Kirby Smart wins? Does this count as Saban losing to a opponent, or does this loss go on Sark?
I think the first time this question has been posed, I think it's an interesting one because we know the numbers. Saban now 21-0
all time against assistants.
Yeah, 19 of those games decided by double digits, including that win over Lane Kiffin. Although that game was a lot tighter than 63-48. I think you would have to put an asterisk because Nick Saban's actually not coaching in this game, so I wouldn't think it counts. So by looking at that angle, Clay, you probably are on to something. Georgia probably wins this game. Because Nick Saban's not going to be there, and that stat that has been pretty incredible because those are pretty good assistant coaches with pretty good programs, for it to be 21-0 is pretty amazing.
So, question for you, kind of looking forward, how much are these tickets costing? Right? You usually are pretty plugged in with the ticket market. Usually a game like this would be what, $700-800 to get in for decent seats. Now that there's only 25% seat availability, what do the numbers look like?
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, I had some friends go to the A&M game. They said it was just really a sterile, boring environment. They wouldn't go back. Get into Texas A&M when A&M was ranked, 11th, 12th, 13th, whatever the number was back then. A get-in ticket was $75. Talked to our local
that's not bad.
A couple of days ago, though, they said get in. Well, on this one was $350 to $375. I think good tickets are around $500 each. This is just one of those hyped-up games. We haven't seen Georgia come to Tuscaloosa since Nick Saban's first year with Alabama back in 2007, a game that Matt Stafford wins in overtime, first play in overtime. So it's been a while.
That was the Britney Spears game, right?
That was the Britney Spears game. Yeah, the better way to look at it than the Matt Stafford game.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the Mike Patrick Britney Spears comment. So it's been a long time, and Georgia fans, they've been chomping at the bit to finally get Alabama and get Alabama at home. So this is a pretty big ticket. I've got no desire to pay $500 to go sit in a 1/4 capacity stadium. I mean, you did it the other night for the Titans and Bills. I mean, it might be fun with the kids, but a game of this magnitude, I'd rather sit on the couch and watch it.
LT, we appreciate the time, my man. We will talk to you again. Enjoy the game.